I'm Glenn McGinnis and welcome to Outburst. This week, Equalization.
They don't mind taking our money. So if you want our money, let us put our pipelines through.
It's obvious that the concerns of Alberta are misplaced.
Well, look at what happened with the fire. Oh, that sucks.
We are fortunate where we live, and although we do work hard for it, I think it'd be nice to share.
Especially from Newfoundland, where they haven't been so rich for so long, and Alberta is, and you know what I mean. And I think it should be shared to an extent.
It depends on if the system is accurate on which provinces actually need the help, and then furthermore on if the money is actually going to the right places.
Equalization is a system by which the government tries to ensure similar public services at a similar rate of taxation across the provinces. It's always been a touchy subject, and we've been debating it for more than 60 years. So, is it fair? Does it work? And why should we do it? Unlike other federal transfer payments, equalization affects only 5 provinces. And there are no conditions on how the provinces use those federal dollars, nor a standard on which public services it should provide. In Cape Breton, Nova Scotia, there's a growing group of people concerned with this very topic. We caught up with Nova Scotians for Equalization Fairness at a town hall style meeting in Sydney.
People who have the answers that we need, and 27 members, they couldn't send one. Liberal government couldn't send one person here to answer our question.
There's a reluctance on the part of our politicians when they become government to actually deal with the intent of equalization and to provide some kind of equalness throughout the province. And we're seeing the results of it now. Five towns have dissolved. Another 5 are in the process. A good number of the municipalities are struggling, such as our own. It's just not going to be workable. If that's the intent of equalization, they can discontinue it.
Every municipality is getting shortchanged except the HRM. They're getting it. They're getting all our money.
It gets garbled in Halifax and ultimately becomes part of the general revenues of the province. It was not intended to do that.
We don't have to be getting the $1 billion we're supposed to be getting every year for forever. But once we have it for a few years, we'll have industry down here, we'll have jobs down here.
My name is Russ Green, and I'm a member of the Nova Scotians for Equalization Fairness in Sydney, Nova Scotia. I'm one of the younger members on the board. I've done a lot of traveling in my life. I've been around to, go west. I've spent a lot of years in Ontario. I've been to the States a lot. I came back to Nova Scotia, helped my ailing parents when they were getting older and so forth. And I couldn't believe the deficiencies in this eyesight. It was unbelievable the amount of shortcomings we had here compared to Halifax Regional Municipality, which is our capital city. We're dissatisfied with the current transfer payment system because of the lack of accountability and transparency. Basically, it's a policy that they're following. And it's really hurting our community because we're not seeing that money. We're seeing our young people leave in droves. We educate them, we pay to educate them, and as soon as they're educated, they leave. We're seeing senior citizens here on their own, fending for themselves, no children around, no grandchildren. We have the highest unemployment rate in Canada. We have the highest poverty rates in Canada. We've seen zero infrastructure spent on this island in decades. We haven't seen any infrastructure. We literally get a shovel full of asphalt in a pothole while we watch Halifax rip their roads up, water lines, sewer lines, storm drains, catch basins, new asphalt. So we see the differences, but the results for Cape Breton have not been favorable.
We asked the province of Nova Scotia to explain how federal equalization payments are spent. We got this response from Communications Advisor Krista Higdon. Cape Breton Regional Municipality is treated the same way as any other region in the province. No region or municipal unit is given a specific allotment of the federal equalization funding. Equalization and other transfers from the federal government go into the general revenue of the province and are used to provide programs and services to all Nova Scotians. Does the federal equalization program work?
If it was a fair system right now, okay? I live in Quebec, but I find that Quebec gets far too much of the share constantly. Like Alberta is suffering right now. The federal government is doing nothing to help them, okay? We do need the pipeline, because sure, we're going to have an alternative energy, but it's going to be a long ways in the future. We do need oil, and we do need our oil to get overseas, because why should we be selling it to the States at a third of the price of the world price? We do need that pipeline, and I think the Liberals are really forestalling on it.
I think in principle it sounds like a good program, yeah. And you should share the wealth, you know. Because one of the problems today is that the very rich are not sharing with the lower levels. Yeah.
Well, I don't know the details of it, but I've generally been in favor of the equalization program. Historically, it's worked, maybe not perfectly. I can remember that at one time the West in the Great Depression was suffering, and so they needed help, and so help came from more prosperous provinces. It's always been the case in the Maritimes, or has been the case in the Maritimes, that they have needed financial help. They buy a lot of goods from central Canada, and therefore they're manufactured in central Canada, and they don't have the same production capacities that we have. So I've always been in favor of it. The fairness of it, I cannot answer, but the principle I do favor.
It doesn't for Alberta or any of the have provinces, for sure. And I think it makes it easier for us to be more dependent on those handouts. So in that way, I don't think it's working the way that it was meant to work.
New Brunswick is a pretty poor province. I know that we do receive equalization payments now that you say so, but you can't give everything to everybody.
It works in favor for New Brunswick, so I'm not going to speak against it.
One year you could be a have province, and then the next year you can be a have-not province. So it's, I mean, it's a tough balance to strive for in the first place, but I could see why we have to do that. But now maybe we should have, like, how come our tax rate, provincial tax rates are all different across across Canada? Maybe we should have, I guess we do have the GST, that's the same. But like Alberta, no provincial tax. You go next door, BC's got, is it a 5% tax? I don't know about Saskatchewan, but here in the Maritimes, we have the highest provincial tax rates, and I understand our governments need money.
As a have-not province, I guess it works a little bit. So we do get money with those payments, so I'm not going to turn them down ever as a province of New Brunswick taxpayer.
Probably not, no. I still think we're lagged behind. We don't get our fair crack of the whip here in New Brunswick. And generally, Atlantic Canada, really. I think Nova Scotia falls in the line as the same as us.
I haven't heard it affect anyone positively, so I can't say that it's done much good for, me to report.
That's part of our national federation, is that it's a good thing to have. It's sharing the wealth.
Last year, the federal government posted more than $300 billion in revenue, and not surprisingly, the lion's share came from Alberta through personal income tax, corporate tax, and GST. The federal government transferred $73 billion to the provinces and territories, and $18 billion of that went towards equalization, and those numbers are projected to rise. It may surprise you which province benefits the most from equalization, but first, a very Canadian quiz on that very topic. How many provinces currently receive equalization payments?
3, 2, 1. Ontario. I don't know.
6, 4.
I'll say 8.
Your choices are 3, 5, or 7.
I'll take 7.
3.
3.
5.
You guessed it right off the bat. You're so smart.
I try.
Let's have a handshake.
All
Thank
right.
you.
You're welcome.
Equalization, Canada's federal transfer payment program, was first introduced in 1957 The objective being to bridge the financial gap and to give low-income provinces quality public services like that of higher-income provinces. In 2009, the Harper government introduced the fixed growth rate. This means payments continuously increase at the rate of the Canadian economy. 5 provinces are currently eligible for the transfer: Prince Edward Island, Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, Quebec, and Manitoba. Since 2010, Quebec is the highest benefactor and is expected to collect $13.1 billion in 2019-2020. The other provinces would receive revenue as follows: Prince Edward Island at $0.419 billion, Nova Scotia $2.015 billion, New Brunswick $2.023 billion, and Manitoba at $2.255 billion. Does the federal government do enough for your province?
No,
Okay, why do you say that?
because they are not helping us, like building the infrastructure, pipings, oil refineries. So that's why.
I'm a little touchy on that subject just because we bought our house at the worst possible time, and basically we paid $600,000 for a tiny little duplex, and the market crashed and now we're stuck. And my husband works really hard at Suncor, and sometimes I feel like, not particularly Justin Trudeau, but sometimes I feel he doesn't appreciate it as much.
So just in those kinds of matters, you think the federal government could help out more?
It got very expensive here, and we all work very hard to live here. And sometimes I think other parts of Canada think we're spoiled because of it, but we work hard.
We need more help to get things approved, and jobs and people working and things like that. And it just seems like there's always some kind of roadblock.
Justin Trudeau always worried about is Quebec, and he's even stated that openly. As far as I know, he does nothing to help Alberta whatsoever. He ignores us.
What would you like to see the federal government do?
We need a government that's gonna get our pipelines through and get our oil to port so that we get fair market value for our oil.
No, they don't do enough, because when we try and build pipelines and extra ways of trying to make or minimize our losses, our federal government kind of puts that to a halt. For example, when we try to put past our pipelines so we don't have to sell to the States for 3 times the price and get it back for less, kind of defeats the purpose of doing business.
That's a hard no. I almost feel like we're the forgotten province federally.
I'm not in the government to find out, but I know the rents are terribly high. You can't retire here. It's too expensive. You have to go down either to Edmonton or out of Edmonton.
Well, the federal government, I don't know, I think it doesn't matter who's in power, whether it be Liberals, PCs, or whoever. All they do is screw around with our money. We pay big taxes and we get nothing in return. And they don't want to send it out to the provinces, they just want to blow it.
Oh, no, if that's the case. Well, look at what happened with the fire. Like, oh, that sucks.
The federal government, I don't think we need the federal government. We have Scott Moe, who is the king of premiers. He's respected. He's the most respected, loved premier in Canada. We don't, the federal government is, it's a mess, and it's not run right.
I'll point out that you're from Saskatchewan as well.
Oh, thank you very much.
Even though that we're here in Alberta.
Well, I'm very proud of that.
Yes, I think so. I think they have, as far as the federal responsibilities go, the health care, the things like that they have to take care of, I think they do well enough. I think there's, on the flip side, I think there's sometimes a little bit wastage.
I really don't know what the federal government has going on in our province. I know that the province has no incentives. I want to buy a hybrid electric car. There's nothing. I mean, if you want people to go forward with climate change, you have to have some kind of incentive for that. So as federally, I know that Trudeau is really trying hard with the carbon tax and everything, but I'm sure there's room for improvement, that's for sure.
I think they do. Yes, I mean, there are some areas, of course, that, and it depends on what any one person's interests are. But I'm a senior, obviously, and they're, from my point of view, they're doing enough.
Well, I don't think Confederation was very good for the Maritimes. We've been lagging behind ever since then. We're not tied to America too much anymore, and we can't move our products across the country without things in the way. Just don't seem to appreciate our way of life, I guess.
Define enough, really, I guess, is the question. They try, or they say that they're doing stuff, so we'll have to believe them and see what the election turns up in the fall.
I'm from Saskatchewan, and not even close. Totally too much of a disconnect with reality in the West as a whole, which is unfortunate.
What kind of things do you think they should be doing?
We'll look at each province individually. What made those provinces successful? Help them with those industries. Don't just pander to your few votes in Quebec. Start there.
Yes, I do. I feel, especially now this time of year when we were at flood risk and spring flooding, and I was just talking about the 2011 flood and talking about how and we were directly affected because we had property up at Lake Manitoba, lost 40 feet of frontage, and the governments, both provincial and federal, were instrumental in helping us get back on our feet and recover from the flood. So in that regard, I say yes, and that was my personal experience with it.
And you're from?
Ontario, originally North Bay, Ontario, and now living in Toronto, Ontario. And I would say that we are experiencing a horror show in our province right now in terms of government support. We're experiencing education cuts, we're experiencing cuts to our health care. And ironically, I have a cottage in sort of central Ontario, and it's experiencing severe flooding right now. And I've just heard through the news channels my cottage was just about 4 inches away from being flooded out. And our premier, Doug Ford, has a cottage in the area, and it was only when his cottage was at risk of being flooded that he came up and decided that, in fact, maybe we do have an issue with climate change, and so now he's going to do something because it's directly impacted him.
I don't know. I think they're doing a pretty good job already, and if they can just keep doing what they're doing, I think we'll be okay.
I don't really know. I mean, I think they do their job, and is it enough? I mean, it's not free, so you have to balance it with cost. So I think it's enough. Yeah.
While equalization payments do not come directly from one province to another, there is a growing feeling of unfairness about the system amongst Canadians. The equalization formula is based on a province's ability to generate money through taxation or through natural resource revenue. If a province can make above the national average, it does not qualify. This means some federal revenue from richer provinces goes into the system without getting back, while some poorer provinces are asking for more. So we posed this question to you.
Should wealthier provinces share their prosperity with other provinces?
I believe so, but to a certain extent. I mean, you should be coming up with other resources, other ways to help make Canada as a whole, prosper, not just one province or the other. That's what I believe. I believe we should work together, but to a certain extent.
We are fortunate where we live, and although we do work hard for it, I think it'd be nice to share.
I mean, we're all one country. I think we should all help out each other. So if you have a richer province that, especially from Newfoundland, where they haven't been so rich for so long, and Alberta is, and you know what I mean. And I think it should be shared to an extent.
We are being blocked on all borders, and but they don't mind taking our money. So if you want our money, let us put our pipelines through.
We'll leave that up to the PM to go figure it out. If Alberta is earning its own profits, let Alberta reap the profits. If we have to share our X amount of millions or billions a year, kind of defeats the purpose of working hard for no reason.
Do I feel like we should have to divvy up our money? No, that's almost like socialism or communism to me, where we divvy up our cash in a big pool and share it amongst each other. And also, being that I've been here the last few years, I feel like this has turned into somewhat of a have-not province the last few years for a lot of people. I didn't hear anything about any wealth coming transferred back this way.
Well, myself, I'm from Newfoundland originally, and Our province have struggled a lot over the years, and without some of those transfer payments, they'd be in a lot rougher shape than they are today.
Absolutely not.
Why?
Because it's not our job to make other people have money when they're not motivated to create jobs for themselves.
Yes.
Why?
Because if we are rich, we have to share our blessing to other people and less fortunate and less provinces.
No, because they've been sharing profits and everything, and nobody cares about us. Since the fire, nobody cares about Fort McMurray.
Theoretically, I think it would be nice because we don't all have the same opportunity for resources to have the same wealth. However, I think if I was in one of the wealthier provinces, I would say no. So not really.
I don't see why not if we are all a country. And that's the only way we have poor people, because the rich people don't want to share wealth with the less fortunate.
I do believe that wealthier provinces have a duty to share their prosperity with other provinces, and that this is a back and forth reciprocal relationship where we recognize that different parts of the provinces and different parts of the country have different strengths, and the economies grow at different rates, and it lets us all balance it out over a longer period of time.
If those wealthy provinces are hurting, can they not get some reprieve? And should the people in those provinces have a choice on where their money's spent?
Absolutely, because everything should be spread out. We have one country. We should be helping our brothers and sisters everywhere.
Just equality. We're a country, we're a nation, for unity and just supporting each other as a country. If one province was really struggling.
Yes, I think they should.
Why?
Well, because some of the provinces have minerals and oil, say, and that should be shared across, and we're all part of the same country, so to include those things for everyone.
Yes, I think it's because we're all Canadian. It should be the same for everyone.
Across Canada, all things are not equalization. Economies in every region are undergoing changes, from tariffs to technologies to the unpredictable forces of the global market. From Prince Edward Island to Alberta, each province has its own unique challenges when it comes to generating wealth and spurring innovation. So we took this next question to you.
What are your ideas to improve the economy in your region?
Focus on education, innovation, and get away from cars, because I think there's no future there.
I don't know, more jobs probably.
I guess the first way to help the economy is to settle the debt a little bit, and lots of different approaches on that.
We now have so many products that we bring in from the States, things that we used to have products for in tariff protection that are now manufactured in the States. Bix Pickles would be one. Used to have a plant in Dunnville, Ontario. The Obama government offered large incentives to Bix to build a plant in Pennsylvania, so they removed the plant from Dunnville, built a new plant, and now we import pickles, either directly from the United States or indirectly that come from India to the United States to be packed and then into Canada. And that happens a lot. So we don't have an industrial capacity anymore. We're trying to build an economy based on IT as well as farming. And I guess it's somewhat successful for those who are in those businesses, but it leaves a lot of factory workers and other people in service jobs or unemployed.
More jobs creating, and support university and keep this young people here.
The bigger aspects of this area, so a lot of tourism, for instance, I think that Fredericton would be able to thrive a lot more if more was done to improve that.
Less red tape, lower taxes, different types of incentives.
I guess start with grassroots and jobs.
I think probably we need more small business.
I'd like to see the natural resources come back into the hands of the people a bit more.
Well, I'd like to be more tourism in New Brunswick and more money put into showcasing it.
Pipelines, basically. You know, you've got to take the distribution of oil and the marketing of our oil over the whole of Canada, not just province by province. And I think it's awful that a province can veto against a pipeline coming across when in the whole it's good for the whole of Canada. And I think that's a bit stupid, personally. I think you have to look at the whole scene, not just one province says we don't want it, but if the country needs it, then it should not be a problem. We should just say yes, the pipeline's coming across no matter what. But I'm sure oil in Atlantic Canada would definitely improve the economy of the province, New Brunswick anyway.
I think we need to start putting as much money as we can into renewable energy because and take it out of fossil fuels because we keep burning fossil fuels, we're just going to kill ourselves anyway. So and there's so much room for wind farms and geothermal around here is really big too. So I think we should just be pumping as much money into that as we can, and that would boost the economy, I think, anyways. So yeah.
I like it. Any ideas for?
Just considering what he was saying, our wind energy is just, we can capitalize on that way better than even solar energy, considering how the weather is on this coast.
It's tough because Fredericton's sort of isolated within New Brunswick, I feel like, where it's more that I think in our province it's the rural areas that are going to need more help than places like Fredericton, where it seems like startups come and go and do well enough, where that in places such as Doketown and places like that, they struggle a little bit more. So I think it'd be something to try to help the smaller communities is probably what's needed, to be honest.
That's all for this episode of Outburst on the Cable Public Affairs Channel. I'm Glenn McGuinness. If you have any comments or question ideas about this show or any other show, you can find us on social media. You can also find us on our website, www.cpac.ca/outburst. It's your turn to speak up, and we're listening.